There's a star that lights the road. I take this ride. Just drive. I wanna be the only one to make it to the light. I'll take it to the edge where I live 1,000 lives. Or maybe I could be the one. I'll ride into the setting sun tonight. Just drive.
Hello, welcome back to the testing notebook and to Bahrain for the final pre-season test of 2014. And of course, this is where it gets very serious. These next 4 days are really going to determine whether the teams are going to go to the first race in Melbourne knowing that they've got a good, solid, reliable, hopefully, car underneath them, or whether they are in for a season of pain, or maybe even a first half of the season of pain. So we're here. It's much hotter than it was last week or so, I'm told. It's 26 degrees today, so it really is shirt sleeves and shorts weather. But Bahrain looking pretty good in the sun. And I thought we'd just do a little situation report. At the moment, it's the Mercedes and the Toro Rosso on track. So we'll be hanging the camera over the pit wall and to give you a shot of the cars as they go by. So I thought we'd give you a bit of a situation report as to where everybody is. Isn't this season going to be fantastic for us? It's going to be a complete nightmare for the engineers because they're totally up against it and confused and struggling really to get a handle on these new rules. But it's going to be so fantastic for us viewing and watching these crazy races where, you know, somebody could be leading for 55 out of the 56 laps, break down on lap 55, and then you get the cars in second to come through and win. It is going to be great entertainment. So really interesting season ahead. I think we should do it in order of where people are in terms of performance. So Red Bull are currently the 8th or 9th fastest team. Based on the performance of the first Bahrain test, they'd struggle to get out of qualifying 1. Now, I know all of their KERS, not all of their KERS were working, both the KERS that's connected to the engine crankshaft and the secondary KERS system wasn't. Sorry, I don't mean to say the secondary KERS system. I meant to say the energy recovery system that's attached to the turbo. They weren't working at full chat and delivering full power. So it's unfair to judge, but on the face of it, they would have struggled to get out of Q1. Who knows, when we get to Australia, Red Bull Racing might still struggle to get out of qualifying 1, but I think they would have improved considerably up to then. And certainly from the first day of testing as we are now, for the final test, it does seem that they are making steady progress. But they come here seeking 2 things, total reliability and performance, and they have neither at the moment, Red Bull. I must tell you, I was on the plane coming out here, the Gulf Air plane coming out here, and one of the engineers, one of the personnel from Red Bull was sat a few seats in front of me, and he had a suitcase of parts which had their own seat. It was a proper sort of big roll-on suitcase, a hard shell suitcase. And I don't know whether he just couldn't fit it into the overhead bin and wanted for it to be with him rather than in the hold. But he put it on the seat next to him. It was an empty seat, and then strapped the suitcase in. So the suitcase full of parts. I don't believe it was a battery, because I think there are rules about what you can and can't transport lithium-ion battery-wise on passenger aircraft. I think they need to go in sealed containers actually on freight aircraft. So I don't think it was a battery, and even if it was, that would have come from Renault, surely. But it was clearly in a box of important parts, and there was a Red Bull team member there to meet him off the plane. So I like the idea that these much-needed parts have a seat of their own, presumably paid for at the cost of £1,000 or £2 from here. So the fact that Red Bull have got their pit wall here at all indicates that they are going to try some race distances. They're going to hope to try some race distances, but they're looking at the moment like the 7th or 8th fastest team. Mercedes are the fastest team at the moment. They come here seeking reliability. They have proved, really, I think, that they are reliable, but there was a little breakdown on Nico Rosberg's, at the end of Nico Rosberg's race simulation. Towards the end of his time in the second test. There you can see Nico Rosberg is in the car, and isn't that a happy sight for Mercedes? Should we go and have a look, Pete? I'll just point out who everybody is. That's Georg Nolte, the chap in the white shirt in the back of the garage, who is Nico's press liaison chap, and then Tony Ross on the left-hand side, the engineer. And that's a happy sight when the car is out of the garage. Rosberg has got 8 laps left to go on this run, and there are no panics going on in this garage. So all is looking good. If they can just get completely reliable, then they are looking the best out of everybody. It seems that McLaren are second, but they are fighting Ferrari for that. And really this test is all about Ferrari seeking drivability with their car. We saw Kimi Raikkonen lose it rather spectacularly coming out of a corner towards the end of the first Bahrain test, the second test in all. So Kimi really proving what we saw in Jerez, that the car is just very, very aggressive on its torque coming out of slow corners, and he's just fighting to control it. The power delivery is just a bit too over the top for him. He's just urging, it seems, the team to calm all of that down. I feel we should go back on the pit wall, shouldn't we, Pete? We've got a few cars coming out. So it looks like, yeah, McLaren and Ferrari fighting for second place. Williams and Force India, now they are the interesting duo next. It's very difficult to see who is where by the lap times. They've kind of been trading fastest laps in that sort of third and fourth quickest team spot. So all Mercedes powered top 3 or 4. Then Sauber, then Lotus, then it seems Red Bull, then Marussia, then Caterham and Toro Rosso. It's not really clear whether Toro Rosso are right at the end or whether that is indeed Caterham. Caterham have had their own problems, as have Marussia, but at least Marussia feel that with a Ferrari engine, albeit slightly misfiring as it is at the moment, they are going to get some good laps. But there you go, there's Toro Rosso proving that they are having a better test. I must just tell you, there isn't, I've seen on the Red Bull today, there isn't a larger air opening at the back. So I was expecting to come here and see a huge air opening to improve the cooling at the back, but there isn't one. It's just little detailed updates. But there are some new bits. There are some new bits on the Williams, there are some new bits on the Lotus, and we're going to be going through all of those in development corner on either the final or the penultimate day. So there is Rosberg not using DRS, so you can see that it is a little bit of a race run. But I just think it'll be interesting to clearly Red Bull Racing don't have anything to prove to anybody, but this really will prove, this season will prove how good Newey is at reacting to difficult circumstances and challenges, and how good he is at reacting to this new KERS era. We all know that Adrian Newey hates KERS. He feels that it's sort of artificial, or at least it was an artificial sort of technology as it was in the last few years. Now it's all integrated. He might feel a bit different about it, but aero is his thing. So it's really not really his bag, the way that all these energy recovery systems are working together. So it's going to be fascinating to see how Red Bull fight back. That is going to be one of the stories of the year for me. Now let's just work our way down the end. Just another further thought I had on Red Bull was whether this was actually perfect timing from Mark Webber to leave the team. I wonder if you've had that same thought at home as well. So I wanted to go into a bit of analysis on the lap times from the second test that we had. We've just got a few more minutes in this part to do that as we see the McLaren guys ready to receive the car, and we might hang around here just to see Kevin Magnussen come back into the pits. If we have a look at you sit here, Pete, and have a look at the car come back in. If we start on Friday of the last test, because Thursday was really just sort of setting everything up, what I thought was interesting was, and we'll get on to the top speeds in a minute, You can see the fat exhausts at the back doing well. Look at the gills just on the rear bodywork exit. So that's an extra set, 6 sets of gills there just to help the cooling on the McLaren. That's something that they brought in last week in Bahrain. But they're still actually struggling to keep everything cool there. But Lewis Hamilton's race simulation on the Friday was quite interesting. Started off with 139s, then went to 40s and 41s, and ended up at the end of the stint on a 42. Now, I'll tell you about Nico Rosberg, his teammate's race run earlier, but what that proved was that there is still tyre degradation, rear tyre overheating that's going on with all this extra torque that's going through the tyres. There is still tyre degradation that's hurting them through a stint. There are also, of course, fuel saving in there as well. But if we have a look at the top speeds, on the Friday it was Valtteri Bottas at 330 kilometers an hour, then Lewis Hamilton, Felipe Massa, Jenson Button and Sergio Perez. So that is a Mercedes top 5 in the top speeds. If I stay with the top speeds, on the Saturday, or rather on the Thursday, Fernando Alonso had a top speed of 336.4 kilometers per hour. That's 209 miles an hour. That's a huge, huge top speed. I believe, I'm told, that Alonso actually had a toe on that when he was clocked doing that, because it is that 330 that I told you about just a moment ago, Valtteri Bottas, that's more representative. Nico Rosberg's top speed on the Saturday, the final day, was 332 kilometers per hour, 206 miles an hour. 206 miles an hour, but the first Renault car was 310 kilometers an hour. So the first Renault car was a full 22 kilometers per hour slower than the Mercedes. And if we have a look at the Ferrari, you can just follow Adrian Sutil as he comes in. On that Thursday, with Alonso's 336, albeit with a toe, Vettel's top speed was only 301 kilometers per hour. That was a full 35 kilometers per hour slower in a straight line was Sebastian Vettel than Fernando Alonso in the Ferrari. 21 miles an hour slower in a straight line, which is absolutely astonishing. A couple of other things, just to explain why that might be. First of all, the cars have narrower rear wings. If you just go and have a look at the rear wings, they're pretty much maxed out on rear wing angle. That's because it's a shallower rear wing this way, so this year, due to the regulations. So they are more slippery and they have less drag. And of course there is a bigger DRS opening. It's 65 or 70 millimeters, I think it is, this year, which is an increased DRS opening. So there are good reasons why they're quicker in a straight line, but also it's because of the energy recovery systems. The turbo energy recovery system is spinning up 125,000 RPM and delivering electricity power straight in to the MGUK, the kinetic energy recovery system, the one that is actually attached to the engine. So it's delivering electric power straight into the engine, boosting the power that's getting from the 1.6 litre engine all the way down the straight. And that's why we're seeing these increased speeds. It's just the way that the energy recovery systems are all working together. Just a final thought on some of the rest of those. We see the Toro Rosso guys nicely not having to work on the car because it's out on the track. That's good to see. Better reliability from Toro Rosso, but they still do have the Marigold gloves on. Can you see, just in case there's a KERS issue when it comes back in, the insulating gloves. But if we go to Saturday, I want to tell you about the Sector 2, which is really dominated by Mercedes, and that proves Sector 2 in Bahrain, you probably know it, is when it's more corners than straights, let's just put it that way. So they've got good traction out of those corners where they're making up time. Raikkonen had been, or rather Alonso had been the best out of Sector 2 with a 41.5 on Thursday, but that was it was identical to Kimi Raikkonen on the Friday with also 41.5, but that was beaten by the others with a 40.4 for Nico Rosberg. And I want to tell you finally about Nico Rosberg's race simulation. It was better than Lewis Hamilton's. Started with 38s, with fresh tyres, and then went 38s, 39s, 39s, down to a 41.5. So clearly there was some tyre degradation going on there, as well as some fuel saving, and they were able to use their energy recovery system, whereas Red Bull and Renault weren't really using their full energy recovery systems, either the KERS or the turbo energy recovery system, the TERS or MGUH if you want to call it that, in that session. So they weren't doing particularly well, but it looks like they're having a better test so far. Right, still to come on the notebook, the impending demise of the Formula One Teams Association FOTA. We'll tell you all about that, as well as a potential American team in Formula One in 2015, and we'll speak to some drivers a little later in the day here in Bahrain. Welcome back to the notebook, and amongst the pansies, are they pansies, Pete? Not quite sure. Tommy, are these pansies? Not quite good on my flowers, sorry about that. But amongst the flowers, we have found a driver, or rather Rachel Brooks has, Nico Rosberg, who didn't finish today quickest at all. Finished today fourth, 1, 2, 3, fourth, yes, on a 136.624, having done 89 laps and done a lot of practice, interestingly enough. For the front jack man, they've got a new front jack man. And it stands to reason he needs to be able to practice in a hot pit stop environment with a live car, getting out of the way with his front jack really quickly. So Nico came in and did loads of laps into the pits, not changing tyres, practice pit stops, but practice jack men. So the rear jack and the front jack man could just practice getting in and out very efficiently. But hopefully you would have already heard Rachel's interview with Nico. He'll tell you about the rest of the day that they did, and it's all pretty smooth running actually for Mercedes. Didn't have too many breakdowns, so they are having a good test. Let's talk about Red Bull while we're here. It was all going so well, they were having a good test until lunchtime, at which point everything overheated again, and they were back to square one. So the 32 laps that Daniel Ricciardo did with a fastest time of 1 minute 37 remains it. In fact, he did manage a few laps in the end. He's up to 35, I believe, as we're heading towards the end of the session. But that was pretty much it once they got everything sorted out. Overheating, their problems not directly related to Renault, but it's all in there. I asked Paul Monaghan, one of their top guys, guy I've known very well for many years since his time with Renault and winning championships with Fernando Alonso. I actually asked him about the front cameras on the nose, because that Red Bull RB10 is still illegal, by the way, if it was to enter a race today, because it doesn't have the cameras on the front nose cone. And I said, are they going to come to the car? And he said, yes, they are. We just haven't got round to it yet. Brackets, stop asking me about the stupid cameras, Kravitz. And then we were talking more generally, and he said, look, don't worry, we'll get it all sorted out. And I think the thing is for Red Bull, don't panic. It's the old Douglas Adams saying, Hitchhiker's Guide, isn't it? Don't panic, because they can very easily run around like headless chickens at the moment and then get into all sorts of trouble. If they don't panic, if they go through everything methodically, they will get there eventually. As Daniel Ricciardo said, it might take them 5 or 6 races, but they will get there eventually. So we will see on that one. Ferrari had an electronics problem with Kimi Räikkönen halfway through the day, which curtailed their running. Only did just under 50 laps today for the third quickest time. Piero Ferrari, son, of course, of the late great Enzo Ferrari, was here, but left at around 3 p.m. Local time. The characteristic, as the Ferrari seems to be going out for one last run at the end of the day, characteristic of the Ferrari seems to be a lot of popping and banging. There's some unburnt fuel that's making its way into the exhaust and then out of the centrally exiting exhaust. You might hear it as Kimi goes out for one final run. Probably not, because he's going to be on the gas. But when he comes in, and this happens on the Ferrari-powered Marussia as well, off the gas, there's a fair bit of exhaust popping and banging, which is hilarious and a bit scary when you're standing next to it. And, yeah, not the most thrilling of shots into the back of the garage. Sorry about that, but if you can't see, we can't go through rather than go and see Kimi go out. But you would have seen all that, hopefully, on the program you just watched, running out the day's action. So, yeah, a lot of sort of unburnt fuel in the exhaust, making big banging sounds, which is all sounds like a misfire. It's not. It's just a little problem that Ferrari have to fix on the Marussia as well. Decent day for Marussia. While we mention them, I must tell you about this because this is interesting. Max Chilton did a 1:38.6 on a qualifying simulation. Now, that doesn't sound too quick compared to the quickest time at the moment of 1:33 of the Mercedes, but it is significantly faster than the Caterham. Caterham's best is a 1:39.8. So a 1:38.6 is much better than Kobayashi's best for Caterham and much better than Marcus Ericsson, the other Caterham driver, of his best of a 1:42. So Marussia winning the battle so far between them and Caterham. That certainly caught Caterham's attention when they were not working on their car because it kept breaking down today. Because they are still in all sorts of trouble. They had some burning, the electric started burning, and that's what happened to them. Lost lots of time. Eventually, Kamui Kobayashi got out, and it was just all a bit sort of juddery and progress was slow, but it was an electrical problem. Interesting problem for Lotus today. All right, Jeff? Interesting problem for Lotus. They came here with a new exhaust. And it was meant to add some performance, I'm not quite sure. And I always wonder if I can move these with my sandals. No, I can't. Probably the releasing pin would probably help on there. They came here, sorry, I got distracted. They came here with a new exhaust, and it didn't work. In fact, it cracked and burnt and started a small fire. So Pastor Maldonado broke down on circuit. They thought there was a fire, there actually wasn't. They brought him back to the pits, and now they're going to run the old exhaust for the rest of the tests. So new exhaust has not worked on the Lotus, and going back to the safe one, as they say. Right, let us wrap up some other people, and who should we talk about next? Just get the timings back. Amelia Herbert there, just on the left-hand side, daughter of good old Johnny. Now, where was it, Pete? I had the times here, and now they've disappeared from my electronic device. Right, Perez, let's talk about him, shall we? Fastest of all when Force India were doing a qualifying simulation. More fingers and thumbs here. With a 35.2, and if you think about it, 2 seconds off Mercedes' pace, that's not bad. And I think we can now say that Force India are pretty much the fourth fastest team, competing with Williams to be the fourth or the fifth fastest team. If you take it as Mercedes, McLaren, Ferrari, and then is it Force India or Williams? We're not quite sure. But 2 seconds off the fastest time on a qualifying simulation is about right for Force India. And then they did a race simulation, 94 laps I think it was in total for Sergio Perez. So the car is reliable. That's great news for them, really. They managed to do 94 laps. The car did a race distance pretty much reliably. Wasn't massively quick, was doing 1:42s, 43s, something like that, when the pace setting, again, 2 seconds per lap, pretty much off the pace setting Mercedes. So, but it's looking pretty good for Sergio Perez. Valtteri Bottas today did lots of practice pit stops, but otherwise Williams were making happy progress for them. And it was all looking, I'm just trying to see if I've got any more information on Bottas, who did all right, Pete, go and have a look at the back of Pastor Maldonado's head, mate, while I get myself together. Bottas, yes, he did the second quickest time. There we go. I knew I had some information there. For 118 laps. Wow. So great. Again, Mercedes-powered, reliable, and fast. So good for them. Sauber, all four drivers were here, actually. Gutierrez, Guido van der Garde, Adrian Sutil, and the other one. 3 drivers were here. And they have actually did some decent running. Sutil with the 5th fastest time in his run, 76 laps for a 1:37. But they seem to have solved their braking problems, their brake stability. Something interesting which we're going to go through when we talk about the brake bias and the brake-by-wire. We're going to do that on Saturday's notebook, along with a steering wheel explainer. So I'll explain what Sauber's problems were with that. Jan Magnussen, yes, I called him Jan Magnussen. Kevin Magnussen, another good day for McLaren. Did lots of long runs, with a 1:37 fastest time. Better get through this quickly. We talked about Daniel Ricciardo. Max Chilton, we talked about that. Danny Kvyat. Yeah, things keep breaking, unfortunately, in the Toro Rosso. It's a pretty desolate garage, you can see over there, with absolutely nothing happened, but you're welcome to go and have a saunter towards there, Pete. Something broke in the car. He only managed... how many laps did Kvyat manage? Sorry, I'm just having a look at this. 56 laps, which is an improvement. 58, which is an improvement on what it was looking like at lunchtime, because it looked like they weren't going to do very many at all. But they have actually managed to do some laps. Maldonado, you've heard about with the Lotus and the cracked exhaust, and Kobayashi. Again, horrendous problems for Caterham and going very slowly indeed. Kamui Kobayashi not happy at all. 1:42. 1 minute 42, so well off the pace. Right, let's update you with those two stories that I told you about. First of all, Gene Haas seems to be close to confirming his entry into Formula One for 2015. He's going to be using Dallara chassis and Ferrari engines. He's had meetings with both Dallara and Ferrari and with Jean Todt of the FIA in Paris, and they seem to be happy. The FIA seems to be happy that they're a serious team. They own the Windshear Wind Tunnel, of course, in North Carolina in America, so they are a very serious team. Why don't you just follow me, Pete, back down to Red Bull. We're going to speak to Daniel Ricciardo. So yeah, it looks like if they can get the money together, which is always the problem, isn't it? We've heard money being a problem for US Grand Prix teams in the past. Then it looks like we're going to see Gene Haas with an American team on the grid for 24 to 15. And it looks like FOTA, the Formula One Teams Association, is no more. We understand that it's going to be dissolved tomorrow, Friday, which is a big shame. They had a meeting at London Heathrow between FOTA and all the teams, trying to get Red Bull and Ferrari, who've split from it, and all the other dissenters back in line to work for the betterment of all the teams, to share costs, etc., etc. It looks like that meeting wasn't very fruitful in terms of getting everybody together, getting them to pay for everything, because FOTA operate, they organise these. They organise the tests here. It's not the teams doing it. It's FOTA doing that, as well as running things like the Fans Forum and good initiatives such as that. So I'm sure we'll go into it later. I'm out of time for now. But it looks like, very sadly, with regret, the Formula One Teams Association is going to be dissolved tomorrow. Another case of the teams not being able to work together for the common good. How many times have we seen that? See you for the notebook tomorrow. Ta-ba, ta-da, ta-ra, bye-bye.